wonder what happened to them. So yeah, not really much to say about them. Very average middle of the road enemies. Number 39, Eye Collectors. These enemies are basically just reskinned Witches of Hemwick, and they mostly only appear in the High Persian jail area. Unlike the witches, they don't have any spells. Their only real notable attack is just their grab, where they try to steal your eyes. But overall, they're okay. And they have easily the funniest death sound effect in the entire game. Number 38, Snake Balls. The main thing that elevates these enemies is just the cool twist of the second half of Forbidden Woods becoming a snake-themed area. And while I like the whole snake theme, these guys are easily the least cool out of the snake enemies. Like, they're not bad, but they mostly just nip at your...
Was zur Hölle? Ich hab Cosplay auf, Digga. Warum sind da so viele PC-Spieler?
feet while you're busy fighting the more important foes. Number 37, Celestial Emissaries. The main thing that makes these guys stand out is, of course, their placement in Forbidden Woods. For a lot of players, myself included, this was one of the weirdest moments in my first playthrough. Pretty much all the enemies up until this point have been beasts or just strange creatures.
Face off, team deathmatch. MCC is live. Assume all contacts are hostile. We got the lead. Now hold it.
But then these alien dudes show up, and it makes you start to wonder what's really going on throughout Yarna. Combat-wise, the melee ones are pretty basic, but the spellcasters are actually surprisingly deadly. They still die pretty quick, though. Number 36, Snail Women. Similar to the Celestial Emissaries, the Snail Women are mostly commendable for building the game's atmosphere in a cool way. I like how one just randomly drops from the sky in Hunter's Nightmare, indicating that the fishing hamlet is somewhere above you. Man, Nightmare geography is so weird. And then, of course, once you get to the Hamlet Cave, they're all over the place. And they also make you realize that those things beneath your feet aren't fish. Gross. Then, of course, there's the ominous scene of them praying before the corpse of Koss and her orphan, which is really weird. They're not particularly fun to fight, but I can't ignore what a fantastic job they do at setting the mood for the DLC's finale. Number 35, Hemwick Grave Women. The Hemwick Grave Women are like a less memorable version of the Yarnamites, but they also make Hemwick feel more like a unique location, even if it is one of the less noteworthy areas in the game. Like the Yarnamites, it's fun to hear them spout dialogue about killing you and how much you disgust them since they're so far gone. They also have some memorable sneaky placements, and moveset-wise, they're pretty solid. I don't really have any complaints. Number 34, Garden of Eyes. First of all, I apologize to the guy on YouTube named after these enemies for putting you in the bottom half of the list, but in general, I like these guys. Their attacks aren't crazy good, and they have one grab where they give you Frenzy, which is pretty uncool, but I like their placement in the game. Being found at Bergenworth, there's a good chance that the reason they have so many eyes was because of them being experimented on by Bergenworth scholars to see if physically adding eyes would be a reasonable way to ascend in grade ones. Unfortunately, though, it seems they were wrong. Number 33, Canehurst Gargoyles. After dealing with the annoying-ass screeching silver ladies inside of Canehurst, it feels like a nice breath of fresh air when you get to the top and just face off against these gargoyles. They're not particularly amazing either, but still a good bit better. In a few areas, they try to pass as just being statues, but once you get close, they start moving, and I think that's a cool gimmick. There's also a few spots where they're hidden and try to get the jump on you. They do have an annoying grab attack as well, but honestly, that goes for a lot of enemies. Number 32, Winter Lanterns. Okay, so ranking Winter Lanterns is really weird. You know how in the intro, I said this list would be subjective, since it's hard to measure an enemy when they're super cool lore and design-wise, but suck gameplay-wise? Well, winter lanterns are like a 10 out of 10 on the cool factor scale, while also being a 10 out of 10 on the bullshit scale. When it comes to fighting them, you literally build frenzy just by looking at them, and when the frenzy meter is full, you lose 75% of your max HP. So combining this with the fact that their only attack is a grab with insane range, which leaves you unable to deal with your frenzy, it's basically a perfect recipe for one-shotting you. But on the other hand, these things are so damn interesting. I love their insane humming slash singing slash whatever the hell it is. And it's really cool that if you use the make contact gesture, they completely stop in their tracks, which is so ominous. And the lore around them is so insane. Upon close inspection, they share a lot of similarities to the doll, and a lot of people believe that they're just what happens to the dolls after they've been used to level up too many times. There's also the fact that they commonly drop high-level blood gems for you, which makes farming them in the late game a good tactic. So overall, you can place these enemies a lot higher or a lot lower, and I wouldn't really be able to argue. Gameplay-wise, they're complete ass, but I can't help but be intrigued by them. Number 31, Beast Patience. So from here on, I'm starting to have very few negative things to say about the enemies. Though of course, there will be exceptions. And the Beast Patients make it here mostly just for being solid and inoffensive enemies. They don't have crazy movesets or anything, but they work well as the main enemy type in Old Yarn. And they're mostly just a threat because they attack in large numbers. Also, it's cool how they're some of the first beasts to ever exist, since they're basically the first wave of people who were turned into beasts, leading Old Yarn to be burned down, and also leading them to be afraid of fire, meaning they'll act somewhat passive around you if you're holding a torch, which is nice. Number 30, Cloaked Beast Patients. And they're one spot higher since they serve the same purpose as the regular Beast Patients, except they look slightly cooler, and have slightly more dangerous movesets. I'm also including the giant cloaked ones here, since I don't want it to be too redundant. And they're also slightly more dangerous and have slightly better movesets, plus they're more intimidating due to their size. Number 29, Giant Lost Children. Okay, for these guys I really didn't know what to put for their names. Some call them Yetis, others just say Rock Throwers, but I'm going with what seems to be the official name for them. And by far the best thing about these guys is their goofy ass faces. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't help but at least smile every time I see one of these things. They just look so weird, and I love it. Other than that, they throw giant rocks at you, which then break into smaller pieces of rock when landing, which also do a ton of damage. So basically, don't get hit by it. Up close, they aren't helpless, but they're not exactly intimidating either. So while they're not super special gameplay-wise, I'll always just have a weird soft spot for them. Number 28, Fluorescent Flower. This is basically the epitome of how high an enemy can be placed by design alone. Well, mostly. It does have one really cool attack from range where it shoots mini meteors summoned from the cosmos, which is awesome. But other than that, this thing isn't very remarkable in terms of combat. Even so, I just find this thing to be memorable. Its anatomy is really bizarre, and I like its placement at Virgin Word. I haven't really found much lore on this thing, but the fact that it's in this area just makes sense. Number 27, Fishman Mages. So now we have some more projectile-based enemies, but these ones are actually pretty cool. They basically just smite down lightning on wherever you're standing, so as long as you keep moving, they're not too difficult. Though going down a ladder near one is basically a guarantee to get hit. Overall, they do a good job of building the weird atmosphere in the second half of Fishing Hamlet, and also who could forget the ranting one at the beginning of the area. By the wrath of Mother Goss. Number 26, Mergo's Attendants and Chief Attendants. These guys are some of the most bizarre enemies in the entire series, and I just can't help but find them memorable. Sometimes they just work like zombie pigmen. They'll leave you alone, but if you start attacking them, they'll fight back. But other times, they also just attack you anyway when your back is turned to them. In general, though, being surrounded by them is amusing. It kind of reminds me of watching the mushroom people walk around in Dark Souls 1. Then there's also the big female versions who attack you regardless.
Digga,
They
was
have
soll man denn
decent
da machen?
movesets and
So
aren't really a pain to fight, so I think they're cool. Also, if they're new to the basic ones, then they'll start attacking you as well. Overall, very odd enemies. Number 25, Amygdalas or Amygdalae. I don't know how to pronounce their plural version. Anyway, lots of you probably...
Deine Mutter, Alter!
And that's fair, since
Schwuchtel!
they aren't killable aside from the one that's a boss fight. I guess that could rule them out. But I just had to include them. Bloodborne wouldn't be the same without these things. In fact, I think they're possibly the most well-done aspect of the entire game in terms of getting across the Lovecraftian twist. In the early game, it's very unclear what they even are. There are just some spots in the game where you'll find that a weird blue vortex wants to suck you up. And if you get caught, there's some weird invisible thing that crushes and teleports you. But if you do one of two things, either defeat Rom and cause the Blood Moon's descent, or gain at least 40 insight, you can see them. And that was easily one of the best moments in my entire first playthrough. Like, you mean that giant Rule 34 looking piece of shit up there has just been around this whole time? And then it's great how they're just all over the place in Yahar Ghul. By this point in the game, you really just have to accept that there are immensely powerful beings at work in the world, and you just have to be fine with their existence. Also, I have to mention their designs. They wouldn't be nearly as effective if they just had some boring, generic look to them, but my god, these things look awesome. Number 24, Brain of Mensis. And Brain of Mensis is here since I like it for similar reasons as the Amygdala. Gameplay-wise, it isn't special, it just forces frenzy on you from a distance, but luckily you can usually just run past that spot pretty quickly anyway. The main reason I love this thing is just lore and general weirdness. Many people think of it as the final evolution of the dolls. First they turn into winter lanterns, and then eventually just this. Shitty life cycle. But the best thing about the brain is that it has one of my favorite moments in the game. Once you drop it into the pit, you can actually get close to it, and if you attempt to make contact with it, it will give you a moon rune. Now, I've heard many theories for why it does this, but here are my two favorites. Since it is confirmed that this thing is a Great One, it probably knows of the existence of other Great Ones. So when it gives you the moon rune, that might be its way of trying to warn you about the moon presence. And the other theory would be that, since the moon rune gives you more echoes from killing enemies, that might be its way of telling you to kill it, so that it can leave this realm or dimension or whatever, and go on to do whatever it is Great Ones do, I guess. Number 23, Yarnamites. I know it's a bit debatable to put them this high, since on their own, these guys aren't that formidable, but the game just wouldn't be the same without them. They're such a memorable part of the first half especially, and I love how at first it's kind of confusing why you're just slicing up the supposed common folk of the city, until you realize it's because they're turning into beasts, and they're just only partially transformed by this point. Overall, I really enjoy these guys. They're way more memorable than, say, the basic hollow enemies at Dark Souls. And of course, their quotes.
Away! Away! Away!
Number 22, Wheelchair Huntsman. These guys serve a similar purpose to the regular Yarnamites, but are just more memorable. Seeing these elders give their best effort to try and put you down is really entertaining. Plus, they actually end up having a lot of variants with different weapons that were really surprising at first. Some of them literally have full-on Gatling guns, and there are also ones who have flamethrowers. I just love seeing these old dudes busting out all these crazy tools. And it's hilarious how you can just stand right in front of the blunderbuss ones and their shots will miss. Number 21, NPCs. So this is kind of a weird one. I imagine a lot of people expected them to be way lower on the list, but at the end of the day, I guess this is where I'd put them as a collective whole. The dilemma with these guys is that fighting them can range anywhere between, wow, that was surprisingly fun, to holy shit, why am I even playing this game? All in all, it really is just like facing other players using different trick weapons. So overall, I don't dislike their inclusion in the game, but they probably would have been better if